In 1947, the British Ministry of Food told families to abandon the preservation methods their grandmothers had used for generations. It said the old ways were dangerous. It said modern alternatives were safer. Item 7 on this list was quietly discouraged that same decade. The industry that benefited doubled its market share within a generation. These 10 tricks weren't abandoned because they stopped working. They were abandoned because somebody got rich when British families forgot them. Before we start, subscribe. What you are about to learn is not nostalgia. It is British history. Let us count down. Item 10. Rainwater harvesting. Before metered water bills existed, your grandmother's roof gutters fed two 50-gallon barrels supplying the entire kitchen garden through summer. The Water Act of 1945 nationalised British water services and gave regional authorities a direct commercial interest in metered household consumption. Every barrel she filled was a transaction they could not charge for. The Environment Agency now confirms household rainwater harvesting poses no public health risk for garden use. Collecting rainwater for garden and toilet use is entirely legal in Britain today, with no permit required. Your grandmother never paid for rain that fell on her own roof. Item 9. The Root Cellar. Before electric refrigeration reached British villages, your grandfather dug an 8-foot cellar into the north-facing hillside, maintaining 4 degrees Celsius year-round at zero running cost. The Electricity Act of 1947 established the British Electricity Authority, which took over 505 separate electricity undertakings with a direct commercial interest in promoting appliance sales. No government guidance ever mentioned that a hand-dug cellar outperformed a refrigerator for seasonal storage at no ongoing cost. Historic England confirms earth-sheltered storage maintains more consistent temperatures than mechanical refrigeration. Planning rules now require permits for underground structures. Your grandparents never asked permission to store their own food. Item 8. Open-pollinated seed saving. Every autumn, your grandfather collected seed from his tomatoes, beans and marrows, dried them 2 weeks by the range, and replanted them true the following spring for nothing. When Britain joined the European Community in 1973, the national list system required varieties to be officially registered before seed could be marketed, creating barriers for traditional open-pollinated varieties that had never needed registration. Seed companies replaced these with sterile F1 hybrids, forcing annual repurchase. Garden Organics Heritage Seed Library, established in 1975, now preserves over 800 traditional British varieties that cannot be commercially sold under current regulations. Saving seed from your own garden for personal use remains entirely legal. Your grandfather never needed a license to replant his own harvest. Patent break. Item 7. Margarine and the Ministry of Food. In the late 1940s, the Ministry of Food recommended British households replace lard, dripping and sweat with hydrogenated vegetable margarine. Unilever, manufacturer of Stork margarine, had invested heavily in hydrogenation infrastructure and ran extensive consumer campaigns throughout this period, including the Stork Wartime cookery book distributed to British housewives, positioning margarine as the modern, practical choice. Your grandmother had rendered lard from pork back fat since childhood. It stored for months at room temperature. Its smoke point reaches 190 degrees Celsius. Her pastry, her sweet pudding, her roasting fat, all of it worked because the fat was nutritionally complete. The margarine promoted as healthier contained trans fats. American researcher Ansel Keys introduced the lipid heart hypothesis in 1953. And decades of research confirmed that industrially produced trans fats raise harmful cholesterol and increase cardiovascular disease risk. EU regulation restricting industrially produced trans fats, retained in UK law after Brexit, finally came into force in 2021, more than 70 years after your grandmother was told to discard the good fat. Professor Tim Spector of King's College London has publicly challenged the demonization of traditional fats, arguing the relationship between dietary fat and health is far more complex than post-war guidance suggested. Your grandmother was right. The official guidance got it backwards. Item 6. Graywater Recycling. Before indoor plumbing reached rural Britain, your grandfather ran washing up water through a buried clay pipe to the kitchen garden, cutting household water demand by half. Mid-20th century public health legislation required domestic wastewater in connected areas to discharge into municipal sewers, where authorities billed for every litre of treatment. The Environment Agency now acknowledges simple greywater reuse for garden irrigation poses negligible environmental risk. A basic diverter costs under £25 and is fully legal in England. Your grandfather never paid the water board to water his own vegetables. Item 5. The Backyard Smokehouse. Before refrigeration, your great-grandfather's stone smokehouse preserved hams and bacon for 12 months, using nothing but oak smoke and coarse salt at pennies per joint. The Food and Drugs Act of 1955 gave councils wide-ranging powers to restrict food preparation on domestic premises, making home smoking operations increasingly difficult to maintain. Research in the International Journal of Food Microbiology confirmed phenolic smoke compounds are effective against Listeria monocytogenes and Salmonella. Home smoking for your own family's consumption remains entirely legal in Britain today. The knowledge very nearly died with his generation. Item 4. Foraging on common land. In 1950, your grandmother gathered bilberries, elderflower, field mushrooms, and sloe berries from common land as ordinary weekly life, feeding her family for free through every season. The Countryside Act of 1968 introduced restrictions on plant removal, and subsequent Natural England guidance emphasised contamination risk in ways that discouraged practices carried out by British families for generations. Natural England's own current guidance confirms responsible personal foraging from common land is entirely compatible with conservation objectives. Personal foraging for non-commercial use remains legal under the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000. The hedgerows your grandmother knew by heart are still there. Item 3. Backyard beekeeping. Your grandfather's 2 pine hives produced 40 pounds of honey annually, pollinated his entire kitchen garden, and cost nothing beyond the initial timber. The Bees Act of 1980 created a registration and inspection framework that the British Beekeepers Association has acknowledged acts as a deterrent to new beekeepers. The Bumblebee Conservation Trust confirmed garden beekeeping measurably increases local wild pollinator populations. Backyard beekeeping is fully legal throughout Britain with free voluntary registration on BeeBase. Your grandfather knew his colony by the sound of the hive alone. Item 2. Lime render and cob repair. Before Portland cement, your grandfather repaired every crumbling wall with lime putty at roughly £8 per square metre, and those walls breathed, shed moisture naturally, and stood for generations. The Building Research Establishment, working alongside the cement manufacturing industry, promoted Portland cement as the modern standard from the 1950s onwards. Historic England now formally states that cement render on pre-1919 British buildings traps moisture, causing structural decay, and recommends lime as the correct material. Like-for-like lime repair requires no planning permission and no licensed contractor. Your grandfather mixed his lime by hand in a wooden trough. Item 1. Manifesto Close. This is not a trick, it is a philosophy. Your great-grandfather was not poor, he was sovereign. His roof gave him water, his cellar gave him food through winter. His saved seed cut every tie to the commercial supply chain. His smokehouse, his lime walls, his foraging knowledge, his beehives, none of it arrived with a monthly bill. The entire infrastructure of British domestic dependency was built within living memory and sold as progress. Some of it is progress, but a family that produces nothing is dependent on whoever produces everything. None of this is fantasy. None of this is paranoia. It is how British families lived on this land for the entire length of British history before the last 60 years. Your grandparents knew all of it. We forgot it in a single generation because forgetting was profitable for someone else. This week, set 1 barrel beneath your downpipe. Save seed from 1 tomato. Find your nearest common land and learn 1 plant your grandmother would have recognized. Tell me in the comments which one you are trying first. because I promise you, somebody in your family tree knew every last trick on this list. That knowledge did not die. It just went quiet. It is time to start listening again.